Hi, this is Denise.
Hey, this is Maggie.
Welcome to our podcast, Candor and Courage at Work.
Denise and I have known each other for a long time, a couple of decades, HR pros, and we thought it might be helpful if we got together and shared some of the things that we've learned along the way.
That's right, Maggie. Many struggle with being candid and being courageous, and we just want to use what we've learned to help you use those traits in your daily work life.
Here's hoping that makes you more successful. And here we go. Hey, Denise, it's great to be back.
Hi, Maggie. It's great to be back for sure.
Really enjoyed getting episode 1 put together as an overview basis for folks on why we're doing what we're doing, how we're doing it, and when to listen, everything around candor and courage at work. So today, I'm really excited that we're focusing on candor and looking forward to hearing what makes you so passionate about it.
Well, I enjoyed our first episode, if I must say, because I'm wondering if people are like, who are these women, and what do they know about this stuff? And so I'm definitely stoked about sharing that information with the group and with you too, because I bet you there's some things that I haven't shared with you that maybe I will in this episode.
I'll bet I'm going to learn some things today. And that's our intent for HR professionals, for people outside of HR, just to take what we've learned in HR and hopefully enable those folks that listen to be more successful as a result.
Absolutely. All right. So shall we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's dive in. Okay. So in the first episode, when I was introducing the concept of candor and how I look at it, I used the example and I'll reuse it again here. So when we are young and our parents are bringing us up, and of course, when we're kids, we have no filter, right?
Some don't ever outgrow that.
Yes, that is true. So when we're young, our parents, when we're in social situations, they always tell us what?
If you've got nothing nice to say,
say nothing.
Right.
So I grew up that way. I'm a very compliant child. And so, with our manners and our parental guidance, the tendency is to keep quiet on those things. And I believe that it works in social situations, and so I look at Facebook and I see my friends posting things and I'm going, I don't know that I would have said that.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know if I would have posted that. And I look at it as I love my friends and I don't want to upset them. And so I'm just going to kind of keep my opinion to myself because honestly, they didn't ask me for my opinion. So I'm just going to keep my mouth shut and just scroll on. And I think that is okay in social situations, but we're here talking about candor and courage at work. And, in a workplace setting, the risk is so high that if we're not candid with people, we run the chance that we're going to make mistakes that can affect the workplace and ultimately the organization. So, keeping our opinions to ourselves in social situations is fine, but in the workplace, it really has no place. We've got to share observations with our team and sometimes with our superiors, our supervisors, and sometimes with maybe vendors that we work with. So in that leadership role, I really believe that it is our responsibility to grow other people, and candor is a part of that. I would say to people that I speak to in my regular work life, imagine what would happen. And I'm going to ask you this question.
Sure.
Imagine your team, in your prior roles or your team today. If they were making mistakes and you said absolutely nothing to them, what would your team look like?
Well, the thing that comes to mind for me is I could not begin to be upset with them or even angry with them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I haven't shared with them that they're making mistakes, then they're going to continue to make those mistakes.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be a reflection on me as a leader. And, one of my favorite sayings is what you don't condemn, you condone. So if I remain silent, then I have said everything's okay.
I completely agree with that. And I've used that phrase in my professional life, crediting you, of course.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, your team is walking around thinking they're doing the right thing because nobody has told them that what they're doing is not the optimal thing. I mean, it's not always about right or wrong. It's, good or better or best. And they're just not performing to that level because we haven't given them the feedback. And I know you give feedback, and I think I give feedback.
I do know you give feedback.
But for our young leaders or new leaders, it's hard to know where to kind of get started with that. So I just, I had a conversation with you earlier about the people that I have worked with in my past, the high performing leaders, the high potential employees. Those folks really want that feedback. And I think that, like going back to my social media explanation earlier, well, they didn't ask me for my opinion. I don't know that I should share how I feel about that. But these young new leaders, and even if they're not leaders, if they're, just a team member, I shouldn't say just a team member, they want to know if I'm going to be successful, I want you to tell me what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong so that I have a better chance of being successful down the road. So I know a lot of people feel that some people don't want to hear that, but there's really a group and an important group that do want to hear that.
I want to pick up on a point that you made a moment ago because I think it's important to emphasize that it's not just a matter of right and wrong. It's good, better, and best. And this population that you're referring to, which I think is pretty much everyone in the workforce who has a desire to grow and develop, needs to understand what they need to do to go from good or even bad to good to better to best.
And they want the shortest path because I don't want to keep knocking my head against the wall and making the same mistake over if you know how I can do it more efficiently. And so I'm going to ask you, what do you think folks that want to hear that feedback, what do you think they think of a leader that does not provide them the feedback like we were talking about earlier?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. One, I think that the regard for the leader is diminished because there are expectations that we have of those that we look up to for guidance and direction and growth. And we know that many, if not most, people who leave their jobs leave because of their leader.
Absolutely.
So this is a controllable factor for the leader to improve their retention. I think that they would see their leader as simply lacking courage. I just have to throw that in because that's ultimately what it is. And so, what are reasons we avoid candor?
Before I answer your question, I want to go back to your point about courage, because not only is it part of our podcast, but I'm thinking about that person who feels that you knew something that you didn't share with me. And if you don't have the courage to tell me that says to me, what I'm doing is wrong, but you're focused on how you feel about delivering that feedback rather than my betterment.
Excellent point.
And so ultimately for me, I have two rules with everybody that I work with. Okay. Number one is don't ever lie to me. Number two is don't ever let me be blindsided. That's really the only two rules there, aside from do your job well. Okay. But that lying part is also by omission. And so I feel the most comfortable with people around me, and that includes my supervisor, that they're going to tell me the truth. And so I trust the people who don't lie to me. I trust the people who tell me the truth. So the courage piece, and that's going to be our next episode. I can't wait to hear more about that. But I just had that epiphany in this discussion about how you took the focus of me as your staff member, your team member, and put it on you.
Yep. Yep.
And how wrong that feels that you did not care for me more than you cared for yourself.
For yourself.
So,
Right.
And I don't think that's the message that most people want to convey to people. So I'm really looking forward to next episode about courage, because I believe people don't want to do that. So anyway, I'm going to go back. So your question was, what holds people back from giving,
besides
from
lack
being
of courage.
candor, besides lack of courage? I mean, what do you expect most people would say is the reason they hold back?
It's fear. And people mistake courage for fear. Or lack of courage, as experiencing fear. But they're also not sure how someone's going to react.
Yep. I think that's the number one. You just don't know whether you're going to damage a relationship, if they're going to accept it and be happy with it. And just that fear of how they're going to react is going to hold you back. I also believe that, but it's all tied into it really, is that will this damage our relationship where there's going to be conflict, or whether long term you and I are not going to get along like we used to when I was nice, air quotes,
Sure.
and didn't share my feelings with you. But again, I go back to the risk factor in this. What happens if you don't share that feedback? You really do have to overcome, the fear or the lack of courage, whatever that is, because ultimately your goal is to improve the workplace.
Right.
So in the book, Radical Candor, Kim Scott talks about a person on her team who is underperforming. I love that term, underperforming, because I feel like when we're struggling with how to be candid with people, to call them a poor performer is too uncomfortable. But underperforming, I found that people have a better time with that.
It's a positive approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Or more positive. So in the book, Radical Candor, the hook that got me was Kim Scott was talking about a member of her team and how he was underperforming. And of course, you can read the book and get the whole story. But he was a nice guy. And she just did not want to be candid with him at that time in her career to tell him where he was not performing well. And so she walked through all the steps she would take to try to get him to perform well. And anything really other than just sitting him down and telling him what the problem was so they could address it and move on.
Yeah.
And so that brought me back to a time years ago. And I'm an HR person, and I'm coaching managers on their HR issues. And I had this one manager that came into my office complaining about his associate and wanting him to just basically wanted me to say it's okay to fire him.
Well, that's normally where HR gets the bad rap for saying no.
Exactly. And they get the excuse, well, HR won't let me fire you.
Right.
So anyway, he comes in and we talk through the counseling session, and I give him what I call the prescription, the steps you need to take to fix this and the conversation you need to have and move on. He comes back to my office a short time later. Well, he's done it again. So I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I'm pretty sure we talked about this last time. No, that's internal, not external dialogue.
Right.
And so, we went over it again and sent him on his way. Well, this gentleman had the misfortune of coming to my office for the third time on a day that was more stressful than normal. And he caught me in a very short-tempered mood. Patience is not my strong suit. Okay.
Candor? Yes. Patience? No.
Yes. And honestly, this was an epiphany, I think, that set me forward. And he just had the misfortune of being the match that ignited the fuse. So again, being impatient, being stressed, I just literally spoke out and said, why are you coming to me for the third time about the same person, the same issue, and you're not doing anything that I'm telling you to do to fix it? And my answer today is not going to be different than it was the last two times. So I don't understand. What do you want out of me? This gentleman and my teammates that were around that heard me say that, their eyes got huge.
I'm sure.
And I'm going to be completely candid with you. It felt good to say it. And I know there might be
Richly deserved.
There might be some HR professionals on there that, yes, somebody said it. But it felt good for about 10 seconds. And looking at his face and looking around the room, I was like, I was crushed. I was rude. I was absolutely rude. But I stood by my opinion. I stood by what I said. I just needed to say it in a different way. And that's where Candor came into my life, because I got his attention that day.
I'm sure.
And I apologized, which was important. And we sat down and we went through his issues. And I had a captive audience. So unfortunately, it was a little bit of fear involved.
Yeah.
Because, there's been many times in my career where people have told me that I make people fearful. So we'll save that for another episode.
Okay.
But yeah, it just walked away. And I'm just like, I have to do things differently, but I like what I've done here. That I have told people the truth rather than dancing around it. And so that's how I got started with Candor.
That's awesome. And I think that that's a great place for us to look at taking a pause here and picking this back up to continue our conversations around Candor for the next episode. And so any closing comments before we do?
I think I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and just start with some advice for people that I feel like that we can't just come out of the gate and be candid with people. After next episode, when we talk about the steps we need to take, I want to encourage everybody to build relationships with the people that work around you. Don't just come out of the gate and be candid with people, because that's gonna drive them away. So I want you to really think about how you can build better relationships with people before you become candid with them. And of course, I always go back to Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the foundation of most of my leadership and management learning. And he talks about the emotional bank account and making more deposits into relationships with people before you have to take some withdrawals, but never allow your emotional bank account to become overdrawn. So I'm going to leave you with that.
Beautiful.
And we'll talk more in the next episode.
I think that's a great place to stop today. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today for Candor and Courage at Work.
We hope you found some inspiration and encouragement in today's episode.
For more information or to connect with us, visit our website, candorandcourageatwork.com, and be sure to download future episodes wherever you listen.